Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar all about music Braille transcription using the Sao Mai Braille software for blind musicians and transcribers, jointly hosted by the Sao Mai Center for the Blind and the DAISY Music Braille project. Let's meet our presenters for today. I'm Dr. Sarah Morley Wilkins, the Project Manager and User Experience Consultant of the DAISY Music Braille project. Our objective is to improve access to music Braille, and I'm going to share with you some of the activities we're leading and supporting to secure the future of music Braille. The DAISY Consortium is an international non-profit membership organisation working with over 150 partners all over the world to improve access to reading for people with print disabilities. I'm delighted to be here with Mr. Phúc Hoai Dang, the SMB Development Team Lead from the Sao Mai Center for the Blind, who will tell us about the main Braille translation features of SMB. And I'm also pleased to be joined by Mr. Haipeng, the technical consultant on the DAISY Music Braille project, who will demonstrate using SMB to convert scores into music Braille. We'll finish with a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so please add your questions or comments into the chat window during the webinar if you'd like us to address anything in particular. So firstly, I'd like to put this webinar into context. The DAISY Music Braille project, which is in its final year, is making strategic interventions to secure the future of music Braille production and use in the face of declining expertise and a lack of suitable conversion tools and file format standards. We have several strategic interventions underway. The first is the development of tools for music Braille creation. Today's webinar covers the development of one kind of tool in particular, an interactive multimedia music notation and editing tool for blind users and transcribers, SMB with MuseScore. Related tool development, which we won't cover in this webinar, includes a professional automated online conversion tool for transcribers, Make Braille from DZB Leeson. Tool development is, however, just one part of the story to secure music Braille for the future. Our other interventions are helping to improve the file standards for music scores with W3C and music publishers, so the master files are more accessible and easier to convert into Braille. We're making it easier for people to find existing Braille scores in online collections with improved and harmonised metadata. We're helping educators and blind musicians by signposting teaching and learning resources. And we're continuing with our sector networks to improve efficient international collaboration between music Braille producers and users. So let's now hear about how we came to support the development of SMB. Our sector research in 2018 identified an international and vital need for a reliable interactive tool for blind musicians of all ages to be able to create and learn music in multimedia ways, in speech, sound and Braille. This was true for blind musicians in education, for their leisure activities and for their employment, and for the sighted people supporting them. The tool would have to include the prioritised international sector requirements we'd gathered, so that it would be up to date with Braille rules and usable in different countries. We're funding the development of two free tools which will work beautifully together, Sao Mai's Braille Converter and MuseScore, a free mainstream music notation and editing program. Music Braille functionality is being added into Sao Mai's Braille Converter, and MuseScore is adding accessibility improvements, and this will be covered in a separate demonstration. By the end of 2022, these two tools will work together to give a fully accessible and seamless music notation and editing tool for blind musicians and transcribers for creating, reading, and learning music independently in speech, sound, and Braille. Now we'd like to express our thanks to the agencies who have made all this possible with their kind financial support: CNIB, DAISY Strategic Development Fund, Friends of DZB Leeson, MTM, NLB, Norwegian Association of the Blind, NOTA, ONTHE, RNIB, SBS and Vision Australia. We thank you all. For more information about the DAISY Music Braille project in general, you can sign up to our mailing list by emailing us at musicbraille@daisy.org, and you can visit our project webpage at daisy.org/music-braille. So, having set the scene, it's now my pleasure to hand over first to Phúc Hoai Dang, the SMB development team lead from the Sao Mai Center for the Blind, who's going to talk about the general Braille translation features of the SMB converter tool. We'll then hear from Haipeng, the technical consultant of the Daisy Music Braille project, who will demonstrate using SMB to convert some real scores into Braille. And we'll finish with a Q&A session. So please continue to put your questions or comments in the chat window during the webinar, ready for that final session.
Hi, everyone. This is Phúc from Sao Mai Center for the Blind. I'm currently serving as the Executive Director of the Center. In my presentation today, I would like to give you a quick tour of main features of the Sao Mai Braille software, SMB. SMB is designed to be an accessible editor and Braille translation software, and it's created with the hope to provide an additionally affordable solution for both blind individuals and Braille transcribers. After starting the Sao Mai Braille, you can press Ctrl-N to new print document or Ctrl-Shift-N to new Braille document. One SMB document may contain one or all of data types such as text, image, math equation, and music scores. Objects like image, equation, and music scores can be inserted into Braille document from the Insert menu. You can insert as many objects as you want. For instance, if you have a music textbook with 50 music scores, you can insert them in line with the text, then you translate them all into Braille. Please note, from version 21.6, we temporarily disable the Braille translation features for math and the tactile graphic due to some unstable Braille translation result. We're exploring the resource to help further develop and improve the math Braille for the next major release of SMB. Now I'm going to open the file that I already prepared for this presentation.
Control O. Open dialog file name. Help 1 of 11. Demo.smd/center. Braille music converter project SM.
This demo document has the text which starts and different inserted objects. I will go through the document so you can listen to Josh reader reading different text, whip styles, and objects.
Blank. Heading 1 demo documents. Blank. Heading 2 list. Following are some milk drinks. Level 1 bullet fresh milk. Level 2 bullet tea milk. Level 2 bullet th milk. Level 1 bullet orange juice. Blank. Heading 2 tables. Table with 3 rows, 3 columns. Not a table. Tab N name. Column 2 description. Column 3 price. Column 2 column 1 row 2 SM music reader SM column 2 unaccessible music column 3 free column 2 column 1 row 3 Sao Mai Braille column 2 Braille translation Braille.
I'm navigating within the table.
Row 3 column 3 free table with 3 rows 3 columns blank. Heading 2 inserted objects.
Now below are the inserted objects.
Graphic logo of Sao Mai Center for the Blind.
Yeah, the screen reader reads the graphic together with the internet text.
Blank. Equation root left brace minus b right brace plus 12/7.
Yeah, this is the math equation. On the screen, the sighted people can see the math equation.
Blank. Music yesterday once more. Music.
This is the first English score. Yesterday once more. SMB doesn't draw the sheet on the screen, but it puts the music icon so the sighted people can recognize that is the music score.
Blank. Music with fans. That's Jesus. Music.
This is the second score with Norwegian lyrics.
Blank. Music new.xml.
And this is the third score with lyrics written in Vietnamese language. Now I'm talking a little bit about style feature. SMB has two types of styles, the print and Braille styles. The print style is applied for the print document. It saves the text format information such as font attributes, font names, and font size extra. While Braille style is applied for the Braille document, and it saves Braille translation rules such as left-right indentation, whether to insert the blank line before or after, or whether to state the opening and closing indicators for the text whip styles. To customize the Braille translation rules and settings for the Braille styles, go to Menu Tools and then choose Options And from the options dialog, you choose Styles page.
Alt L, menu, tools menu, translate, control plus. Leaving menus, demo documents list following are some healthy links, translation tables, styles.
Now I will choose one Braille style like heading level 1, and then I tap through the different Braille translation rules so you can have a look at.
Text style list 2, normal 1 of 50. Heading 1, 2 of 56. Text style first line and then edit 4, type in text. Text style list and then edit, type in text. Text style left and then edit 4, type in text. Text style right and then edit, type in text. Text style blank line before edit 0, type in text. Text style blank line after edit, type in text. Text style beginning symbol edit, type in text. Text style ending symbol edit, type in text. Text style save button to activate, press space bar.
Okay, so those are the Braille translation rules of the Braille styles.
Meeting controls to move to an item, press the arrow keys. Alt P, this meeting. Main features of SMB, Braille music converter project, SMB demo dot. Escape, demo documents list.
Another main feature that you might want to explore is to add the Braille translation tables. By default, SMB is added with the two English is UEB tables.
Alt L, menu, tools menu, translate, control plus. Translation table sub menu T. Default translation alt plus A E. English unified English uncontracted Braille. English unified English contracted Braille alt plus 1 E. No translation alt plus 0 N. Leaving menus, demo documents list.
So now I'm going to add another two tables, Norwegian language and Vietnamese language, so I can apply for the second and the third scores in my demo document. Now I'm also going to Tools,
Alt L, menu, tools menu,
Options dialog,
leaving menus, demo documents list.
and then I choose Translation Tables page.
Translation tables.
Press Tab to move through this page.
Translation tables default Braille table. English unified English uncontracted.
In this page, you can also change the default translation table. Now I'm going to the translation table checkbox list, so I can add the Norwegian and Vietnamese tables.
Translation tables browse button to act. Translation tables list 2 English unified English context 1 of 115. To move items use the arrow keys.
Here.
Nepali uncontracted not checked 7N. Norwegian grade 0 and con not checked 77 to 1. Norwegian grade 1 contract not checked 70 to 115.
Okay, I want to add Norwegian grade 1.
Space checked.
Press space to check it.
Vietnamese grade 1 partial not checked 100 V. Vietnamese grade 2. Vietnamese sacred Braille. Vietnamese uncontracted not checked 112 or 115.
Okay, there's Vietnamese table that I want to add.
Space checked.
Okay, and then I just press enter to activate it. OK to save it.
Enter. Demo documents list following are some healthy drinks. Fresh milk, peanut milk, TH milk, orange juice, tables, name, description, price, SMB.
Now I want to apply the Norwegian language table for the second score and the Vietnamese table for the third score. So because I know that the lyrics of these two scores are written in Norwegian and Vietnamese, and the remaining will be translated with the default English UEB table.
Music XML. Blank. Music with fans. That's tab Jesus music.
To apply, you just select the text or the object and then go to menu tunes to translation table submenu and choose the table that you want to apply for that selection.
Music with fans. Music with fans. That's tab Jesus music selected.
Okay, this is the second score. I already selected. Go to menu tunes.
Alt L menu. Tools menu. Translate control plus T. Translation table submenu T.
Down and choose translation table submenu.
Default translation alt plus A. Vietnamese uncontracted alt plus Norwegian grade 1 contracted alt plus 3 N.
Okay, Norwegian. This is the table that I added in previous step. Press enter to apply.
Enter. Leaving menus. Demo documents list following are some healthy drinks. Fresh.
Repeat same steps for the third score with the Vietnamese translation table.
Blank. Music XML.
This one.
Music XML selected. Alt L menu. Tools menu. Translation table submenu T. Default translation alt Vietnamese uncontracted alt plus 4 V. Enter. Leaving menus. Demo documents list following are some healthy drinks. Fresh milk, peanut milk.
Now I'm going to press Ctrl T to translate into Braille.
Braille 1 demo.smb Sao Mai 0%. 100%. Blank. Demo documents.
Okay, the first page, that is the text. It is translated with the English Braille translation table.
Blank. Following are some healthy drinks free. A star. Fresh milk. O. Peanut milk. O. TH milk. A star. Orange juice. Demo document.
Now I move to the second page.
Yesterday. Once more.
Yeah, this is the start of the first score. Yesterday once more. You can see.
Carpenters. FSA kerosene. Blank. Solo. 7 number HJ apostrophe number D4. Number 8 VVXGDH 787.EZ. 3 F slash E. Number 8 7 solo. Blank. FSA kerosene carpenters.
And now, as I remember that the page number 10 will be the second score. So I press Ctrl G to go to the page.
Control G. Go to combo box page to change the selection use. Enter page number edit type in text. Enter demo documents list following are some healthy drinks free and start. Jesus. Number BJG. Live plus fans 1 10 AVN.
Yeah, this is the title of the second score. I don't know Norwegian Braille. If some of you know, you can read it.
Jesus. T. Blank. Voice. N7 number HHA apostrophe number AHTTTNTPRRQ1 TPPO.
Yeah, this is the note
2
line.
live plus and 1 SNAVN. Jesus.
And after that, that is the lyric.
B caret TTSTRORP caret TT number CACC $WCPC $CWT.
But I can check for the translation of Vietnamese for sure. Yeah. So I go to the page 13.
Control G. Go to combo box. Page to change. Enter page number. Edit type. 13. Enter. Memo documents. List A. Blank. .ma.hmg.
Yes, this is the title of the Vietnamese song. It's translated correct in Vietnamese.
.tr.cng.sn.
Please note that for the music, on the text elements like lyrics, titles will be translated by using the Lip-Louis translation table. For the music notes or some other music elements will be handled by our own music translation engine, SM Music Braille. Sao Mai Braille supports to save the Braille into different file types. The native one, that is the .smb, stands for Sao Mai Braille. .smb save the rich text Braille document so you can freely edit later. The second one, that is the BRL file, that is the formatted Braille. The third one, that is the BRL, that is unformatted Braille. And the last one, that is PEF, portable embosser format. It's a new XML-based file format. So now I'm going to save this document as the BRF file.
Control S. Save as dialog. File name. Edit combo. Braille 1 demo.smb. Set the value. Use the arrow keys or type to the home. RAILLE 1 dash D. Home. Save as type. Combo box. Sao Mai Braille. Braille ready document star.drf 204. Braille ready document star.drf 204. File name. Edit combo. Braille 1 demo.drf. Set the value. Use the arrow keys. Braille 1 demo.drf.
Okay.
Enter. Edit type and text. Alt A 100% 100 D Braille music converter project SMB Braille 1 demo.drf. Meeting controls. To move to an item, press the arrow. Alt T. Main features of D Braille music converter project SMB Braille 1 demo. D demo documents.
Now I would like to share with you some information about a project that we are working on with the funding support from Daisy Music Braille project. We will continue to improve the Braille music translation features of the SMB in this second year. In addition, new Braille-related features will be also developed for the latest version of MusicXML 4.0. They include support to open and transcribe MusicXML data file into Braille, live editing Braille translation features, working as the module for MusicXML, incorporate between MusicXML and SMB via either the plugin or web service to get the high quality Braille output, and the 6-key Braille input method. I hope that with my presentation, you already have a general idea about how to get started with the Sao Mai Braille software. And please also check the user guide for more details. Now I am handing over to Mr. Haipeng for his demonstration of the music Braille transcription with SMB. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Phúc Hoai Dang, a Chinese blind musician and Braille music transcriber, founder of the Braille.org and Open Braille Music projects, and a music Braille technical consultant of the Daisy Music Braille project. I'm now guiding Mr. Phúc for the development of SMB's music Braille translation function. After a year's hard work, we have already achieved basically good results from scratch. Today I will demonstrate how I use SMB's tool to create music Braille from a digital score. Currently, SMB accepts MusicXML files generated from any music notation software. To prepare a good MusicXML file for Braille translation, the quality of the source notation file is very important. Basically, every object should have its correct category attached to correct note or any other musical element in order to get the most accurate Braille output. Hidden objects for playback purpose are strictly forbidden. We have prepared very detailed engraving guidance for use with mainstream music notation software, and it can be found at the Music Braille project page of the Daisy website. Now, I will demonstrate the Braille music translation features of SMB using a short and intermediate leveled piano piece. The first prelude from Shostakovich's 24 Preludes, Opus 34. This score was extracted from the complete preludes, well engraved by a MuseScore engraver. The file almost meets all of our engraving guidance. Before doing any translation, we should first check the source score. If the source is a MusicXML file, import it into MuseScore or Finale. If you are cited, compare it with the original score. Check if there are wrong notes, missing symbols and texts, and if there are unwanted hidden objects. If any errors are found, correct them. If any unwanted hidden objects for playback are found, remove them and clean the score. If you are blind, it's better to find a sighted person to check it. Fortunately, this Shostakovich score doesn't contain any errors and extra hidden information. So we can now export this score into MusicXML. Before importing the score into SMB, you should also check if your SMB settings meet your requirements. For example, cells per line, lines per page, Braille translation tables, Braille music format you want, that is bar over bar, section by section. Whether you want a full score or parts, whether you want all music elements to be shown, etc. I keep most of the settings as default, with some minor adjustments I will say below. So here is my exported MusicXML file, and now I just import it into SMB. Create a new document, and then insert the MusicXML file, this score.
1, 2, 4. Document 1.smd Sao Mai Braille. Document insert PM. Music score. Braille 1.MusicXML Braille.
SMB is a very flexible tool. Before doing the translation, we can do lots of things.
Translate options. Interface install store info. Store info. Music item list.
The score info dialog lets us check for title information.
Subtitle. Title. 24 Preludes. Octave 34. Subtitle. Composer. Dmitry Shostakovich.
If it's a chamber or orchestral score, we can even choose which parts to be translated. Control very complex part labeling and instrument changes during the piece, so that we can get correct Braille instrument abbreviations for every part, even in very complicated scores.
Document 1.smd.
The magic for transcribers like me is the music Braille page of the options dialog.
Translate options. Options. Music Braille. Music.
Here, we can choose what format to use.
Measure numbering. Default format. Bar over bar. Measure numbering. Yes. Translate mode. Single part. Place title page at beginning of every part.
Show or hide specific symbol.
Measure numbering. Yes. The music cancel. Okay. Can music. Style. Music Braille. Format. Transcription. MusicXML. Transcription. Show /hide signs. Articulate.
Adjust some translation behavior to fulfill different country style. For me, I choose bar over bar format, but not force octave mark at the beginning of every measure in a parallel. I also prefer slur over tie to show the whole slur clearly as in print.
Document.
After adjusting the options, if needed, we can choose a translation table for texts such as title and tempo marks.
Translate and translation tables. Default translation Alt plus no translation Chinese English in English United States uncontracted EBI Alt plus 3 document 1.
I prefer pre-UEB contracted English, so-called EBAE, so it's set by default. Now, let's begin the SMB translation by pressing Ctrl plus T.
100%.
As you can see, the score is quickly translated. SMB can do a very quick translation, even on large scores. Now we are in the Braille document. The title,
Top.
composer, tempo marks, and time key signatures are correctly placed. Bar over bar is well formatted, giving us a quite good appearance. Here, I can see something we need to fix. The subtitle, Roman number 1 at measure 1, is exported in MusicXML as a general word and should be centered above, not placed inside the music. So we remove it and re-input it above the tempo mark.
Delete, delete, delete. Delete, 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 space. Blank, blank. Space, 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 L, D, space, blank.
The mezzo forte dynamic should be before the diminuendo text, so we move it.
Delete, delete, delete. S, F, J.
Next, we'll take a look at the translation of a full orchestral score, which is the most exciting feature in SMB. At this time, in case of any known issues, I will choose a score for harp and string orchestra, Dans Sacré, Dans Profane by Debussy. The orchestration is simple, but the music is not. The original Sibelius score is from a UK publisher, Scores Reformed, with whom I've worked for 4 years to transcribe their excellent orchestral repertoire into Braille. Here, I'll show the original score opened in Sibelius, just as the publisher sent to me.
1, 2, 5 CRS0 SCRS 0331 net.
I've already prepared the MusicXML file. It doesn't need much editing before exporting the MusicXML file from Sibelius, because this publisher's standard generally meets most of our engraving guidance. To keep the Braille clean in Sibelius before exporting to MusicXML, I removed some duplicated titling text tags for footers and blank pages by locating and deleting these texts using a plugin called System Objects. Now, we import the well marked up MusicXML score into SMB and translate it. I set the translate mode to orchestra, make measure numbers with number sign, uncheck each parallel on new page, set interval direction to down, and disable showing clefs. Other options are nearly the same as in the previous Shostakovich score.
Insert page 3M. Music score. Done. 21 SCSS. Staccato SCRS 0331 dances sacre and dances profane. 1.
Here's the result. From a general view, the result is very impressive, saving lots of time when editing for the final production. All instrument names are correctly labeled in Braille, and we can even find a list of instruments and their Braille abbreviations before the score, just as we would find in a standard Braille transcription. SMB has many unique features, such as automatically listing instruments and their Braille abbreviations, translating lettering ties, handling cross-staff passages with correct note grouping, and logical lines breaking. When working with complex orchestral scores, we can define Braille part labels flexibly, according to instrument changes on the same staff, and also according to varying staff amount in the multi-staff part, such as a division string section. Now, for something to correct. The title for the first section, Dans Sacré, should be above the tempo text instead of being the second line of the tempo text and before the time and key signatures. So we move the text block up, right-centered above the tempo text and time and key signatures.
Blank. Blank. Selected. Space. Space. Blank. 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 Pasted. Space. 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 Delete space. Space.
There is a small bug. Measure numbers are counted from 0 in this score. This issue will be fixed soon. Generally, the overall translation result is pretty good. And at the current stage of development, results should be checked and feedback sent to the developers. So this is a very short and basic demonstration from a transcriber's angle. SMB is a newly born music Braille translation software, and it still has lots of improvements and new features which will be made over the coming year. We are working hard to improve its essential functionality so that at the end of this project, it will become a powerful tool for every transcriber and blind musician. Okay.